Thank you. Thank you, chairs, dear colleagues, Commission. It's an honor for me to be here today to present the result of our intense work of the last months. First of all, I will also thank my co-rapporteur, Dragos Tudorache, for the extremely good cooperation we had so far and for the constructive and pleasant atmosphere that accompanied our work from the very beginning. This is very encouraging ahead of the next phases, given the complexity of this work and of the file overall. Before I get into details, as Dragos just said, as European lawmakers, we are now drafting the first piece of legislation of AI in the world, so we have a double responsibility, not only to set rules that will build trust among our citizens, but also to set a precedent and steer the global debate on the relationship between people and this new set of technologies. I have to say I'm quite proud of the draft report we are presenting today. It contains several strong messages that intend to clarify the Commission's proposal, strengthen the protection of individuals in Europe, without hampering the enormous opportunities for innovation and economic growth that AI holds. As we said from the very beginning, the report lays down the points on which we could find an easy agreement. As you can see, there are many issues and even that are still there, but on the many that we agreed on, I would say we did a good advancement, and also on the remaining ones we are not too far apart. I'm particularly glad that we could agree on strengthening the alignment with the GDPR. It must be clear that the legal basis for processing personal data in Europe is and must remain defined solely by the GDPR. I'm also very glad that we could agree on the need, very well explained by my colleague Tudorache, on the need to prohibit the use of AI systems for predictive policing, a practice that has no place in liberal societies and deeply undermines the presumption of innocence, also not working. We also deleted the possibility to derogate from conformity assessment procedures for purposes of national interest, including for national security, as we are not convinced that derogating from the rules would make systems in this area more reliable to address these issues. To the contrary, it risks worsening the problems they are intended to tackle. We strengthened in several articles the involvement of stakeholders, including civil society organizations, SMEs, academia, and social partners, from the standardization process to the sandboxes to regular consultations with the board, as we believe they can provide major insights on the developments on the market as well as in the society, and can flag trends and possible problems. And most of all, because it makes the process more collaborative, which will help develop a more inclusive model for AI in Europe. We added 2 articles on redress, and this was a missing element in the proposal that it was important for us to include. Indeed, the accountability of the actors involved will be a key factor to really make the AI uptake in Europe trustworthy and human-centric, as it is in the purpose of this regulation. We propose a rebalancing of the obligations among the different actors of the AI value chain. As we know, this is not a linear sector, therefore we cannot apply exactly the same approach of the traditional harmonization legislation. For example, sometimes providers and users work together to develop an AI application, and in some cases providers do not even have access to the datasets, as they are in users' possession. This is why we consider the user should also take responsibility regarding data governance. What is more, the user is best placed to know exactly in what context the AI system will be used and monitor the functioning of the system. As such, it can be aware if a serious incident or malfunctioning occurs before the provider does. This is why we have reinforced stronger requirements for persons responsible for human oversight, as well as the obligation to inform authorities in case of incidents. In Annex 3, as it was already said, we added areas and uses of AI that need to be considered as high risk. the addition, which was mentioned, of AI systems used by political parties for influencing citizens' votes or to count voting ballots. It's absolutely crucial that we protect our democratic processes from any possible misuse by new technologies such as AI. Also, we could amend the rules on enforcement together. We have suggested an ambitious modification by giving to the Commission the role of a European enforcer in specific cases amounting to widespread infringements at EU level or of inaction by a member state impacting at least 2 other member states. Under this new mechanism, we have given the Commission the power of market surveillance authorities, as well as the right to impose fines in order to ensure it's fully equipped to efficiently enforce the AI Act. As high-risk AI systems can affect our health, safety or fundamental rights, we agree it is of paramount importance to deliver an efficient enforcement mechanism. We don't want a paper tiger, that's how we can say. So ahead of the deadline for amendments, I can anticipate that I will also introduce a number of proposals that are currently left out from the draft report, for the reasons we mentioned. I can very briefly mention them, as in this way I can also mention some of the existing areas on which we will still work. For example, from my side, I will introduce a fundamental rights impact assessment for all users, strengthening protections for vulnerable groups, and I want to introduce principles applicable to all AI systems, including accessibility provisions. I think we also need to do more about AI on the workplace. We demanded several times a legislative initiative to address it, even in the AIDA report that we just voted last week. However, the practices that are currently included in the AI Act in the employment context cannot interfere with the national competences on labour legislation, which, for example, in some cases foresee mandatory consultation policies. So I think we need to go on this, and also for sure on Article 5, I'm sure that we will continue a discussion regarding the prohibitions. For example, in my case, I will propose to delete the exceptions on the prohibition of remote biometric recognition systems. Also, for sure, we can do more on clarifying the social scoring prohibition. For example, if we could think of extending it to private actors. For sure, we will also need to work more on the emotion recognition issue, which is very problematic. I believe that when it comes to high-risk AI system listed in Annex 3, a third-party assessment should be mandatory to demonstrate compliance in a neutral and objective manner. This would also reduce the burden on micro and small providers who don't necessarily have the resources to conduct such self-assessment without excessive financial costs. For sure, we need to find a balance on this, but I'm sure that we can do a bit more. Also, I need to highlight that the debate on the impact of fundamental rights, safety and health issues should not make us forget the environmental aspect of these technologies. I'm sure, again, that we can do more on this part in the next phase. AI has a considerable environmental footprint, and ensuring a green AI in Europe is key to meet our objectives under the Green New Deal. Dear colleagues, dear Commission, dear Dragos, dear rapporteurs, these are some of the main ideas I will present. As I said, we have presented already a very important report with a lot of points that are already tackled. It's a very good first position. I strongly believe that addressing the risks of AI will maximize its benefits and create the conditions for a vibrant single market that respects our values and serves individuals. We cannot afford to get this regulation wrong. It's something that will be at the core of our democracy, at the core of the functioning of our society. And so I think we are in a very crucial moment with this endeavor, and I'm sure that we will all put the best effort in it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brando. And now it's time for our shadow rapporteurs to take the floor for 2 minutes each. And the first speaker in our list is Axel Voss. Axel, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Andros.